What happens when Hollywood's biggest action star steps straight into the lion's den of daytime television and refuses to play by its rules? What you're about to hear is one of the most explosive moments ever imagined in talk show history. A confrontation so intense, so unexpected, that it left the studio frozen and a veteran host completely undone. Millions watched as Tom Cruise calmly dismantled Joy Behar's on-air persona, pushing her to the brink in a moment no one was prepared for. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments how you feel about celebrity confrontations on live TV. The morning began like any other at the View Studios in New York. Joy Behar strode confidently into the makeup room, wearing her familiar air of superiority. Behind the scenes, she was already plotting her approach. Tom Cruise was scheduled to appear to promote the latest Mission Impossible film, and Joy had made no secret of her disdain for his personal beliefs and lifestyle. Today, she planned to corner him on live television. "This is going to be fun," she muttered to her makeup artist, giving herself one last look. "I've got a few questions that'll make him squirm." What Joy didn't realize was that Tom Cruise had prepared too. He had studied past episodes, watched her interviews, learned her tactics. He knew how she steered conversations, how she baited guests, how she turned interviews into ambushes. This wasn't going to be a polite promotional stop. This time, the guest wasn't coming in defenseless. As the cameras rolled, the tension was noticeable. Whoopi Goldberg glanced nervously between Tom and Joy. The other co-hosts were quieter than usual. Tom sat comfortably, relaxed, smiling, but there was something steady and unyielding behind his eyes. "So, Tom," Joy began sweetly, "let's talk about your new movie. Though I have to ask, at your age, isn't it time to stop doing your own stunts?" A few uneasy chuckles rippled through the audience. Tom smiled wider. "Well, Joy, I appreciate your concern, though for someone whose job involves sitting behind a desk criticizing others, it's interesting to question someone who actually does the work." The temperature in the studio dropped. Joy's smile faltered, just briefly, before she snapped back. "Oh, please, that's rich coming from someone known for jumping on couches. Any regrets about making a spectacle of yourself?" Tom leaned forward slightly, his voice still measured. "I expressed genuine happiness, but I understand that might feel uncomfortable for someone whose brand is built on cynicism." The room went silent. "Excuse me," Joy shot back. "Is that journalism now? Because I've watched your show. You don't ask questions to inform, you ask them to humiliate." Joy bristled. "How dare you come on my show and insult me?" "Your show? I thought this was a panel discussion, not a personal power trip." Whoopi tried to step in, but Joy was already spiraling. "I've been doing this longer than you've been making movies. And yet, my work still brings people joy. Can you say the same?" Gasps filled the studio. Joy struggled to respond. For the first time, she wasn't in control. "You think you can disrespect me like this?" she demanded. "I think you mistake cruelty for wit and volume for substance." The words landed hard. Joy's face flushed as her usual dominance crumbled. The other host stayed silent. No one rushed to her defense. "I speak truth to power," she insisted weakly. "You are the power, and you use it to tear people down." The audience watched in stunned disbelief as Joy's confidence gave way to desperation. She lashed out about his personal life, his beliefs, his reputation. Tom didn't flinch. He said, "Prove it, or admit you're just throwing accusations because your tactics aren't working." She couldn't. The silence was devastating. "This is the problem. You never expect pushback, and when it comes, you collapse." "I am never right," Joy snapped. "Everyone is wrong sometimes. The difference is learning." At that point, someone in the audience called out, "You're losing this one." Joy spun around, furious. Whoopi finally tried to call for a break, but it was too late. Joy stood up, yanked off her microphone, and declared, "I'm done. I quit." She stormed off the set as cameras followed her exit, leaving the studio in stunned silence. Tom remained seated. After a moment, he turned to the remaining hosts and said lightly, "So, should we talk about the movie now?" And that, according to viewers, was the moment everything changed. The studio didn't immediately cut to commercial. For several long, uncomfortable seconds, the cameras kept rolling, capturing the stunned faces of the remaining hosts, the frozen audience, and the unmistakable realization that something had gone terribly off script. Whoopi cleared her throat, forcing a nervous laugh. Well, that just happened. Tom Cruise sat quietly, hands folded, his expression calm but reflective. The fire of the confrontation was gone now, replaced with something closer to disappointment than triumph. Behind the scenes, producers were already scrambling. Headsets crackled, stage managers whispered urgently. No one had anticipated this outcome. Not the walk-off, not the silence, and certainly not the way the audience seemed to side with the guest. When the show finally cut to commercial, the atmosphere exploded. Crew members rushed onto the set. A producer leaned in toward Whoopi, whispering frantically. Another hurried after Joy backstage, but the doors had already slammed shut. Tom stood up slowly, offering a polite nod to the hosts. "I'm happy to stay," he said evenly, "but only if the conversation can be respectful." That single sentence carried more weight than any insult. Backstage, Joy was pacing, heels clicking sharply against the floor, ripping off her earpiece and throwing it onto a chair. Her face was flushed, eyes burning. "Did you see that?" she snapped at a stunned production assistant. "He came on my show and turned me into the villain." But the assistant didn't respond, because the truth was already becoming impossible to ignore. In the control room, producers were watching social media light up in real time. Clips of the confrontation were already spreading, captioned with words like calm, measured, and brutal. The audience reaction was swift and merciless. For once, the usual applause track wasn't on Joy's side. Back on set, Whoopi addressed the audience carefully. "We're going to take a breath, and when we come back, we'll refocus." When the cameras returned, Joy's seat was empty. Tom sat back down at the table, not triumphant, not smug, just composed. The audience applauded, not wildly, but respectfully. "So," said Whoopi slowly, "let's talk about the film." Tom smiled faintly. "I'd like that." But the conversation never fully recovered its light tone. Something fundamental had shifted. The audience wasn't just watching a movie promotion anymore. They had witnessed a power dynamic collapse live on air. By the end of the broadcast, the tension still lingered like smoke after a fire. And when the episode ended, the real fallout began. Within hours, headlines flooded the internet. Talk show clash shocked viewers. Guests refused to be silenced on daytime TV. Did a Hollywood star expose a media bully? Joy Behar did not return the next day, or the day after that. Behind closed doors, network executives debated damage control. Public statements were drafted and rewritten. Apologies were considered, then scrapped, because the audience had already made up its mind. And for the first time in decades, the question wasn't about what a guest had done wrong. It was about whether a powerful voice had finally been challenged and couldn't handle being challenged back. By the next morning, the fallout had grown far beyond the studio walls. Clips of the confrontation were everywhere. TikTok, X, YouTube, Instagram, racking up millions of views in a matter of hours. Some were slowed down for emphasis, others overlaid with captions like, "This is how you shut down a bully," and "Calm beats chaos." Media analysts replayed the exchange frame by frame. Body language experts weighed in. Former producers of daytime television spoke anonymously, admitting that what happened wasn't entirely surprising. It was just never supposed to happen on air. And at the center of it all was one uncomfortable truth. Tom Cruise never raised his voice. He never insulted her appearance. He never stormed off. Joy did. Inside the network offices, executives were in emergency meetings. The question wasn't just whether Joy's behavior hurt the show, it was whether defending it would hurt the network even more. One senior producer reportedly said it out loud. "If we punish him, the audience revolts. If we protect her, we look complicit." For the first time in years, the usual strategy, wait it out, control the narrative, move on, wasn't working. Joy Behar remained silent. No tweets, no statements, no follow-up interviews. That silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. Meanwhile, Tom Cruise's team declined every request for comment. No victory lap, no press release, no carefully crafted statement. When asked directly, a source close to him said only one thing. He said what he needed to say on camera. That restraint only amplified the contrast. A week passed. Joy still hadn't returned. When The View opened the following Monday, her chair remained empty again. Wilby addressed it briefly, choosing her words carefully. "We're going to let Joy take some time," she said. "We'll leave it at that." But viewers didn't leave it at that. Ratings dipped, comment sections exploded, longtime fans argued with each other, some defending Joy's legacy, others questioning it for the first time. Former guests began quietly speaking out. Clips resurfaced, old interviews where people had been talked over, mocked, or cornered. What once felt like sharp humor now looked uncomfortably similar to a pattern. And suddenly, that on-air confrontation didn't look like an anomaly. It looked like a mirror. Behind the scenes, Joy finally broke her silence, not publicly, but internally. According to insiders, she was furious, humiliated, and convinced she had been set up. She believed the network should have cut the segment, defended her, protected her authority. But the network had a different concern. The audience no longer believed she had authority. A private meeting was scheduled. Lawyers were present. Executives listened politely as Joy spoke, forcefully, emotionally, and unapologetically. When she finished, the room stayed quiet. Then one executive said something no one had ever said to her before. "This isn't about what he did. It's about what the audience saw." And what they saw was someone who couldn't tolerate being challenged on a show built around debate. Days later, a short statement was released. No drama, no explanation, just a line about mutual discussions and next steps. Joy Behar would not be returning. And just like that, a decades-long media persona didn't end with a scandal or a lawsuit, but with a moment of unfiltered truth, broadcast live, where power finally met resistance.